In the heart of Africa, a new dawn is breaking, a generation that refuses to be silenced, that refuses to be defined by a colonial past. This is not a story of victimization, but a saga of resilience, of power, and of a rediscovered sovereignty. For too long, the African continent has been a chessboard for foreign powers, its nations treated as mere pawns in a complex and often exploitative geopolitical game. But the tides are turning, and a new voice, bold and unapologetic, is echoing through the valleys and mountains, from the savannas to the metropolises. A voice that says, "We have not forgotten, and we will no longer be ignored." This is the story of how Africa is rising, not with weapons of war, but with the strength of its conviction and the unity of its people. The world is finally starting to pay attention. The narrative of an impoverished and dependent Africa is crumbling, replaced by the reality of a dynamic continent full of potential. We see the rise of tech hubs in Lagos and Nairobi, the explosion of creativity in fashion and music that captivates global audiences, and economic growth that surpasses many of the so-called developed nations. However, with this new prominence come new challenges. The same powers that once colonized now seek new forms of control, disguised as aid, partnerships, and diplomacy. But the African youth, connected and informed as never before, are wise to these tactics. They understand that true independence is not just political, but also economic and cultural. And then, amidst this changing landscape, a controversial statement emerges, shaking the corridors of power. A supposed warning from a leader of a global power directed at African nations to stay in line. A veiled threat, an arrogant reminder of a world order that many believed was fading. The initial reaction was one of shock and disbelief. How, in the 21st century, would anyone dare to speak to Africa as if it was still a collection of territories to be controlled? The statement, though later downplayed as taken out of context, had already lit a fuse that would lead to an explosion of defiance that no one expected. And from Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, came the answer. Not a carefully worded press release, not a diplomatic note full of euphemisms, but a raw, direct, and unwavering statement from one of Africa's youngest and most audacious leaders. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, in a live press conference, looked directly into the camera and, by extension, at the world. He did not speak like a politician seeking approval, but like a soldier defending his homeland. His words were not just a response to a specific threat. They were a manifesto for a new era of international relations, a declaration that Africa would no longer bow down. "We see you," declared Traoré, his voice firm and resonating with the conviction of generations. "And we will respond." A simple sentence, yet laden with the weight of history and the promise of a different future. Coming from a leader of a landlocked nation in West Africa, a nation that has faced its own challenges of instability and foreign interference, this statement had immense power. It was not the voice of an economic or military superpower, but the voice of a sovereign people, a people who refused to be intimidated. Traoré made it clear that the era of submission was over. The response was immediate and electric. Traoré's words spread like wildfire across social media, transcending borders and oceans. From Johannesburg to Accra, from Nairobi to Dakar, young Africans shared the clip, translated his words, and turned it into an anthem. Hashtags like "Where Africa Will Not Bow" and "We Stand with Traoré" dominated the trends, creating a wave of Pan-African solidarity not seen in decades. What could have been seen as a diplomatic slip by some was transformed into a rallying cry by a generation that yearns for dignity and respect on the world stage. And it wasn't just ordinary. Citizens who united, Other leaders in the region, who are also charting a new course for their nations away from neocolonial influence, quickly expressed their support. In Mali, Colonel Assimi Goïta reposted the video. In Guinea, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya issued a statement echoing Traoré's sentiment. The Alliance of Sahel States, a union of nations seeking African solutions to African problems, saw its support base strengthen. The message was clear. An attack on one is an attack on all. Africa was beginning to speak with one voice. This moment was not just about politics, it was about identity. It was about Africa remembering its own strength, its rich heritage, and its immense potential. For centuries, the narrative about Africa was written by others. Stories of darkness, of dependence, of despair. But the true story of Africa is one of innovation, of community, of joy, and of an unbreakable resilience. It is the story of the kingdoms of Ghana and Mali, the wisdom of Timbuktu, the creativity of Nollywood, and the beat of Afrobeats that is conquering the world. Traoré's statement was a reminder that Africa does not need anyone's validation. What if Africa stopped asking for permission? That is the question that now hangs in the air. What if the continent harnessed its vast natural resources, not for the benefit of foreign corporations, but for the development of its own people? What if the ingenuity of its youth was fully unleashed, creating innovative solutions to the challenges of the 21st century? The answer lies in the millions of young entrepreneurs, scientists, artists, and activists who are already building that future. They are not waiting for an invitation to sit at the table. They are building their own tables. Do you believe in the power of a sovereign Africa? Are you inspired by voices like Ibrahim Traoré who dare to challenge the status quo? If so, then join this movement. Subscribe to our channel, share this video, and be part of the conversation. Let your voice be heard in the comments below. Tell the world why you believe in a strong, united, and free Africa. Your participation is more than a click. It is a declaration of solidarity. It is a vote of confidence in the future we are building together. Don't just be a spectator of history, be one of its authors. The courage of Ibrahim Traoré was not born in a vacuum. It reflects the spirit of a people who, despite decades of exploitation and instability, have never lost their dignity. He understands that true leadership is not about power, but about service. It is not about grand speeches on international stages, but about ensuring that every citizen has access to education, healthcare, and opportunities. His connection with the people is the source of his strength, and that is why his message resonates so deeply. He is not just speaking for himself, he is speaking for millions. The battle for African sovereignty is also a battle for its resources. For too long, the continent's wealth has been drained to enrich other nations, leaving behind a legacy of poverty and dependence. But the new generation of leaders is saying, enough. They are renegotiating contracts, demanding fairer terms, and investing in local industrialization to ensure that the added value remains in Africa. It is about transforming potential into prosperity, about ensuring that the children of Africa are the main beneficiaries of their own wealth. Unity is the key. The old saying, divide and conquer, was the most effective tool of colonialism. Today, the answer is unite and prosper. The African Continental Free Trade Area, the growing cooperation in regional security, and the ever-stronger cultural ties are proof that Africa is coming together like never before. The artificial borders drawn by the colonizers are becoming increasingly irrelevant as a shared Pan-African identity strengthens. Together, the African countries are a force to be reckoned with. The engine of this transformation is the youth. With over 60% of the continent's population under the age of 25, Africa has the world's greatest resource, human capital. This is not a passive youth. They are digitally native, politically aware, and impatient for change. They are using technology to organize, art to protest, and education to empower themselves. They are the generation that will not take no for an answer. They are the generation that will build the Africa of the future on their own terms. That is why it is crucial to challenge the lazy and often racist narratives that still dominate the international media's coverage of Africa. Traoré's story was barely covered by the mainstream Western media, a silence that speaks volumes. They prefer to focus on conflicts and catastrophes, ignoring the stories of progress, innovation, and defiance. It is our duty to tell our own stories, to control our own narrative, and to show the world Africa as it truly is: complex, diverse, resilient, and on the rise. The struggle for sovereignty is not just about resistance, it is also about celebration, celebrating culture, community, and life. It is finding joy in dance, strength in music, and inspiration in art. It is understanding that to be African is to be the heir of an ancient civilization and the bearer of a new hope. The resilience of the African spirit is not just in enduring hardships, but in finding happiness and beauty even in the most challenging circumstances. That joy is, in itself, an act of resistance. "We are not just rising," said Traoré in his powerful message. "We are remembering who we are." This is the essence of the movement. It is not about becoming like the West or the East. It is about rediscovering and embracing the African identity in all its glory. It is a return to the roots, to the values of community, respect for elders, and harmony with nature, while embracing innovation and progress. It is the synthesis of the old and the new, creating something unique and powerful. Traoré's warning to Netanyahu was not an isolated incident. It was a starting gun, a sign that Africa's patience with arrogance and foreign interference has run out. The world is at a turning point, and Africa is no longer willing to be a passive spectator. The continent's nations are forging new alliances, demanding their rightful place in global institutions, and speaking with a confidence that shakes the foundations of the old world order. The lion has awakened, and its roar will be unheard. The road ahead will not be easy. There will be setbacks, there will be opposition, and there will be attempts to divide and weaken this nascent movement. But the flame of sovereignty has been lit, and it cannot be extinguished. It burns in the hearts of millions of people, from Burkina Faso to South Africa, from Senegal to Ethiopia. It is a flame of hope, a flame of pride, and a flame of determination. Traoré's final message, delivered without hesitation, echoes as an anthem for this new era. If you think that Africa will remain silent while its people are threatened, think again. History is being written right now, in the streets of Ouagadougou, in the tech labs of Kigali, and in the hearts of every African who dares to dream of a better future. Don't miss the chance to be part of this monumental journey. If this video has awakened something in you, if you believe in the cause of African sovereignty and dignity, then your next action is crucial. Subscribe now. Click the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future content. Share this video with everyone you know. Let's amplify these voices and make sure the whole world hears. The revolution will not be televised, but it will be streamed. Join us.